Welcome to this webinar on MolSoft's product called ICM Chemist, where we're going to feature desktop cheminformatics tools. My name is Andrew Ori, and if you have any questions, please feel free to email or call. During the webinar, please use the text messaging panel to ask questions. You can follow MolSoft on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter and YouTube. The topics of this webinar are: we're going to build a small database of COX-2 inhibitors from a variety of different sources, retrieve activity data from ChEMBL for COX-2, add property data, e.g. logP, solubility, polar surface area, etc. to a chemical spreadsheet, analyze and build plots, and search a chemical spreadsheet by fingerprint and substructure, and cluster a chemical spreadsheet, and build a target specific libraries and combinatorial libraries using Markush structures and reactions. If you're new to the field of cheminformatics, you may wonder where you can get chemical data from. There are a variety of different databases where you can purchase compounds or screen them. For example, zinc has more than 35 million compounds. eMolecules is a company with about a database of about 6 million, but you can purchase the compounds directly from them and they'll plate them for you so you can test them in the lab. MolCart from MolSoft contains about 9 million compounds from more than 35 different vendors that we work with, and we update this database very regularly. There are also activity databases such as PubChem and ChEMBL, where you'll get the chemical structure and published information about the activity of the compound. There's DrugBank, which contains about 6,800 experimental compounds and 1,800 approved drugs. And then there are databases such as KEGG, HMDB, Metlin, which contain known biometabolites. So we're going to focus on COX-2 inhibitors. Cyclooxygenase 2 is responsible for formation of prostanoids, including prostaglandins such as prostacyclin and thromboxane. Inhibiting COX-2 can provide relief from inflammation and pain. Selective COX-2 inhibitors are members of the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug class. And targeting selectivity for COX-2 reduces the risk of peptide ulceration, which is the main feature of two drugs, Celebrex and Vioxx. These drugs are interesting because after several COX-2 inhibiting drugs were approved for marketing, data from clinical trials revealed that some inhibitors cause a significant increase in heart attacks and strokes. For example, Vioxx was taken off the market in 2004, and concerns regarding Celebrex resulted in them having a black box warning on their drug label. There are many ways to import chemical structures into ICM Chemist. One way is to use a SMILE string. So here we have a SMILE string of the COX-2 inhibitor called Bextra. SMILE stands for Simplified Molecular Input Line Entry System, and it's a specification in form of a line notation for describing the structure of chemical species using short ASCII2 strings. So you can see that common elements are represented by the letters, other elements are shown in square brackets, single bonds aren't shown, and double bonds are shown by equal sign and hash for triple. Ring closure is shown by matching digits. Full documentation for SMILEs can be found here. If you have a SMILE string, you can copy and paste it, or read it in from an Excel sheet. Go to ICM Chemist, and we can go to Edit, add SMILEs, paste it, go OK, and here we have Bextra. So we're going to add Bextra to a chemical table. Click on the chemical table here, give the table a name, COX-2 inhibitors, and go OK. So here we have our small database of COX-2 inhibitors. We're going to add a few more to this database. Second 0D input would be using INCHI identifiers. So this stands for IUPAC International Chemical Identifier. The INCHI key is shown here for another COX-2 inhibitor. Textual identifiers, they're used for it's a textual identifier for chemical substances. It provides a standard and human-readable way to encode molecular information. It's ideal for chemical searching. It was initially developed by UPAC and NIST, and they are non-proprietary format. So if we copy this inchy string, copy, and go to ICM Chemist, go back to the editor, delete extra, and then we go edit, add smiles inchy, and we can once again just paste the inchy key, and here we have the new COX-2 inhibitor called Arcoxia. You just copy that, paste the name here, and then we're going to append it to our chemical spreadsheet. So COX-2 inhibitors, go OK. Now we have 2 chemicals in our database. So chemical input format in 2D is usually in mol format. Multiple mol, this is the mol format shown here. If you have multiple of these, it forms an SDF file. SDF files are useful because you have property sections, so you can add things like molecular weight and activity and other things to your SDF file. When you read in an SDF file into ICM, it automatically becomes a chemical spreadsheet. To do this in ICM Chemist, you go to File, Open SDF. So we go File, Open, and I have a mol file here called Vioxx, which is another COX-2 inhibitor. Go Open, and then we have 2 tables. We can, just like in Excel, we can copy this row by right-clicking here, and we can paste the row into our chemical spreadsheet. For clarity, I'm just going to delete this table. So now we have 3 elements in that table. Another way of reading information into ICM is by sketching the compound yourself. So to sketch a compound, you go to the molecular editor button again here, just delete, and then on the side we have a number of different templates we can use. You can select and rotate if you want to for easy use. You can use the bond buttons here to sketch. I'm going to sketch Celebrex, and you'll see that on the right hand side, as I'm sketching, the properties of the chemical I'm sketching are automatically calculated on the fly. So we have the formula, chemical formula, the smile string which we saw earlier, the inchy key, and then properties such as molecular weight and other Lipinski-like properties such as logP, solubility, hydrogen bond acceptors, hydrogen bond donors, and predicted half-life, prediction whether this compound is going to be a pain compound, which is a definition of a compound that is promiscuous or reactive and may give you misleading results in your screening. And also you have chemical alerts here. If you're building a toxic group or something like that, it will flag it here. So now we've built Celebrex. It's going to go OK. And then we can append this chemical to our table again, the COX-2 inhibitors. Okay, so now we have 4 chemical inhibitors. Another way of importing chemical data is by 3D. So for example, here we have COX-4 inhibitor. COX-2 inhibitor, and it's in PDB code 4COX. So you can read in the structure and extract the chemical. So go PDB search 4COX. The PDB search tab here. Go enter. And that reads the PDB from the PDB website. And the COX-2 inhibitor that we're interested in is called indomethacin, shown here. You can see it in the structure, crystal structure here. So we extract it by right-clicking, extract ligand, append to chemical table COX-2 inhibitors. So now we have indomethacin. We can add some annotation here. like that. Just to show you, you can also search the PDB. I'm just going to delete this structure, we don't need it now. But you can also search the PDB by chemicals. So for example, you could say aspirin and close. Okay, yes. We can search by the string here, and if we go like that, and you can see there are 9 PDB structures which contain aspirin, and we can double click and it will take you directly to that aspirin molecule in the PDB. Okay, so we have our 5 structures. We also have a we have a big chemical dictionary here. I think I just showed you the aspirin, but if you type a string, it will pick it up, and then you can type it in. So this is another older COX-2 inhibitor, and we can add this to our table. So it might also be nice to add some additional COX-2 inhibitors from publicly recorded inhibitors that are in papers with activity data. So one great resource for that is called ChEMBL, and we have a direct link to the ChEMBL website here. So if we type COX-2 in protein name and go search, this is searching the ChEMBL database. ChEMBL is a publicly available database of drugs, drug-like small molecules and their targets. The ChEMBL database is quite unique because of its focus on all aspects of drug discovery, and it's a very large database containing information on more than 1.4 million compounds, and there are over 12 million records of the effect of these compounds on biological systems. So ICM is just retrieving that information at the moment, and you will see that it retrieves 3 different forms of the data. One called ChEMBL All. ChEMBL All represents the original activity data without merging and aggregation. You can see that there are 7,469 elements to this table. ChEMBL Best represents the best activity for each chemical protein pair, and ChEMBL Summary presents a list of chemicals with all activities found in ChEMBL. So for this example, we're just going to use ChEMBL Summary. So we're going to delete the others. So it might be nice to add some properties to this table. So we can do that by going to the chemistry menu and choosing calculate properties. So we can add molecular weight, logP, polar surface area, and one more mole area. Go OK. That's calculating these properties, and then you see we have now additional columns with the molecular weight, logP, solubility, polar surface area, and molecular area. You can sort a column by clicking here. So you've got very big ugly compounds here and very small ones that have been annotated as COX-2 inhibitors in ChEMBL. So you sort here. You can change the view of the chemical table. For example, there's a grid view, so you could select this information, columns, and go grid, and then you have the grid view. Go back to the row view. There's also a form view, so you can toggle through the chemicals like this and view them. Go back to the regular viewing. You can cut and paste columns by right clicking cut and copy. Same with the rows by right clicking on the row headers. You can insert columns with calculations based on the values in the column, for example. You can filter, so you can say you could just show all the compounds with molecular weight greater than 200 and less than 501, for example, or 500. Go OK, and you can see that this is filtered. Just clear the filter. You can also build plots. So you can click on this plot button here, and say we want to plot molecular weight versus logP. Go OK. And we get the plots shown here. You can also add other dimensions to the plot by right clicking on the plot and choosing options. We can change the color based on solubility. OK. You've got the coloring by solubility. Options, and we could maybe change the size of the mark by polar surface area. Apply. Like that. You can also change the shape based on particular values of your table. So you could, for example, select all the compounds that have logP less than 4, and you see the selection here is propagated to your table here. It might be nice to also cluster the table, and you can do that by clicking on the cluster button here and running the clustering, and you'll see that we'll get a tree on the right hand side. So the tree is fully interactive, so you can change the distance and the colouring will change with it. You can make selections here, and the selection is propagated here. So we could choose representative centers by right clicking in white space, say select centers by minimum logP, go OK, and we can then copy this to a new table, and you could say COX-2 centers, and then we have another database here. I'm going to delete that for clarity. You can save a chemical spreadsheet by right clicking on the header here and choose Save As, SDF, and you can also right click and say Export as HTML, or you can export to Excel as well. You can print by right clicking here, choose Print Table. So there are also a wide variety of chemical search tools in ICM Chemist. You can search by exact match, substructure searching, you can do pattern searching, similarity searching using Tanimoto fingerprints. This works by dividing both structures A and B into small fragments, and then you merge the fragment list and form 2 bit strings, shown here. And then you calculate a Tanimoto distance as the number of bits in A and B divided by n total, and then this is the number on which they are in common. So a Tanimoto distance of 1 means that the structures are exactly the same. So in ICM Chemist, we might be interested to see this small database we made and see how many similar compounds there are in the ChEMBL data with these drugs, which compounds are similar. So we can do that by going to Chemistry, and there's an option called Compare Two Sets. So the first table is ChEMBL summary, the second table is COX-2 inhibitors. We're going to do a similarity with a distance of 0.5 and go OK. Now it's comparing these two tables. So you can see selections are in blue. Obviously it found all the ones in the COX-2 inhibitors, and it's found, it says here, 2,522 selected records in here. So these are all the ones in dark blue are, or shaded, are ones which have similarity to the drugs on the market. So we can right click and choose copy selected rows to table, new, and we're going to say ChEMBL similars. So it's a new database. So this is a smaller database, and we can then also search by other properties. So we know that the Vioxx contains a sulfonamide group. So we can search this table of ChEMBL similars and see how many other chemicals in this database contain this sulfonamide group. So we go to this button here, which has a ring and a pair of binoculars, and gives us this canvas to sketch a filter to search the database. So we can draw the sulfonamide group. You can use the keyboard for shortcuts. We know that this, in many of these, the drugs, that this point here was part of a ring. There was a ring here, so we can say we want this atom to be part of a ring. You see, if you right click on an atom, we have a variety of different things we can add, such as connectivity, an attachment point. So we're going to say we want it to be part of one ring. So if we do the search, so it's saying we'll search the table. We want to search this called ChEMBL similars. Search again, and we can do substructure, or you can do fingerprint similarity, exact match, and then you can output the results to a file or to an SDF file. You can search an SDF file rather than that's saved on your machine, or read it into ICM. So now we have a table, a table called search. A table called results, and we see that we have some sulfonamides. But so you see that we also got hits here that are sort of like linkers between two different other groups. And most of the drugs that we saw in our COX-2 inhibitors had this group at the end terminal. So we may want to change our search query. So we can go back to our search query, and we can right click on the nitrogen and say we want the connectivity as drawn. So we go right click and then choose connectivity, choose as drawn. Okay, search, and now we see that we have terminal sulfonamides. We may also want to find, for example, by changing the connectivity of the nitrogen, we can find terminal sulfonamide groups such as in Celebrex. So now let us expand the search to also identify. So some of the drugs in the COX-2 inhibitor list had sulfonyls as well as sulfonamides. So there's some with sulfonamides, some with sulfonyls. So let's find all those drugs with sulfonyls. So we can edit this to say nitrogens or carbons. A comma C. Go OK. Now search, Now we find sulfonyls, and we should find some sulfonamides as well. Yeah, there's a sulfonamide. Okay, so that's chemical search. You can also add other filters here. So for example, we can add a condition. You can say that we only want structures with a molecular weight greater than 200, and add a condition, molecular weight less than or equal to 500. Then you run the search again, and you get the same response. So the final thing I wanted to show you in this webinar is how to build a combinatorial library. You can enumerate a library by scaffold using Markush. You can decompose a library based on the scaffold, generate a structure activity relationship table. You can also generate a library based on a reaction. And there's also a new inclusion to the very latest version called generating an activity landscape index. It's a method developed by John Van Dree and published in this paper here. Okay. So in your ICM Chemist distribution, you should find an example for the Markush based development of library. I'm just going to delete all these tables just for clarity. And the enumeration Markush it'll be in yours. It's called example underscore enumerate. So here we have the scaffold, the Markush scaffold. You can sketch this in the editor. So if you right click on an atom, you can say element R1, as shown here. And then we have a variety of substituents for each position, R1, R2 and R3. You can see these are fragments. Then to enumerate this library, you go to chemistry, combinatorial chemistry, and choose create enumerate by scaffold. It asks us which table contains a scaffold, and it's called scaffold. Row 1, go OK. And then it's asking us which compounds we want for R1, R2 and R3. These are R1, R2 and R3. Just go you also have built-in modifiers here if you wanted to use our ready-made ones. And go enumerate. And this builds the library to a size of 1320. So here we have the library. So you can also decompose a library. So we built the library, and then we may have tested the library in an experimental assay. We have some data on each of the points. So here we have the screening data for each of these structures. So we know each of these structures has a common substructure, so we can decompose this library and build a structure activity relationship table. So go to chemistry, combinatorial chemistry, R group decomposition, and the scaffold is the original scaffold. This is consistent throughout this table because we've tested this data, and so the scaffold is called scaffold. Index 1 is one row. The table for decomposition is called screening data. And you see we have IC50 here, and the column we're going to decompose is the mole column. We go OK. And this builds your structure activity relationship table. So you have the IC50, you can sort a column so you can see what is contributing to a low IC50 value, which substructure. So it seems at this position here that gives this dual ring seems to be a condition for good binding in this position R3, and also this sulfonyl group here. It seems to be popular. That seems to be a useful substituent here in R1. You can also build a library by reaction. So in your distribution, you should find reaction, an example underscore reaction 1. If we open that, it's a pyridine synthesis. So you have our reactants and our products, and we have a table for reactants here, reactant 1 and reactant 2, and then we can build a database based on this reaction. So you go to chemistry, combinatorial chemistry, enumerate by reaction, and the reaction is called Arhan here, pyridine, go OK, and the reactants are here. Let's go enumerate, and that would build our new library. You can sketch the reaction in the editor using the reaction button here, this arrow button. There are other tools in ICM Chemist. You can generate 3D conformers, stereoisomers, compare two sets, which we did. You can merge two tables. You can select duplicates. You can do some of these options are in Chemist Pro, but so most of the 2D stuff is in ICM Chemist. Thank you very much for your attention, and the next webinar will be on ICM Chemist Pro on August the 23rd. Thank you.